What's up, everyone? This is Ruben Young, aka the Young Electrician. Here on this podcast, we like to see electricians grow, not just in the field, but also in their personal lives. So with that said, let's hop back into it. This episode, we are going to be talking about 5 things not to do when you're taking the Journeyman Exam. And I think these are 5 very important things. There are things that helped me when I take the exam, and there are things that I didn't really implement the first time when I failed the exam. So let's hop right into it. Okay, so first, don't second guess yourself. When you're taking the test, like any test, you're going to have a couple of questions pop up, or many questions pop up, that you don't know for sure what the answer is. And you're navigating the code book, but you can't find the answer no matter how hard you look. If you take a stab at it and you guess and you're like, okay, I kind of feel sure about this answer, and that's your first guess, do not second guess yourself. I'm telling you, don't change your answer. I don't know if you guys have experienced this before, but when I've taken practice exams or just in school taking tests, there'll be times where I wasn't sure about a question and I changed the answer close to the end of, running out of my time. Just because I was like, okay, maybe it's this other answer, and I change it, and I end up getting it wrong, and I end up finding out that the answer I picked in the beginning was actually the right answer. So I remember when I was studying for the Journeyman Exam and when I was studying for the C10 exam, people said this during both prep courses that I took. Do not second guess yourself. And in the beginning, I kind of just, I thought it was because, they didn't want you to waste time going back and trying to change an answer that you're not really sure about. But I understand now on a more deeper level that sometimes our first guess is the right one because we're in more of a clearer thinking. I don't know what it is. And when we go back and we end up changing that, we end up making it wrong. So the first thing, do not second guess yourself. What does that mean? When you answer a question, I'm telling you this, trust me on this. When you answer a question, do not change that answer unless you are 100% sure you know the right answer. So do not change an answer unless you are 100% sure you have found the right answer. So hope that one helps you guys. The second one is, don't linger too long on a question. Look, some questions, and I've said this a lot, and I think this is really important because I see people constantly getting caught up with this particular thing. Some questions are designed to eat up your time. Not sure why. It's a sick, twisted thing that these test makers do, or maybe it's just something, that they're doing unintentionally. I don't know. I remember the second time I took the exam and the time that I passed, I had about an hour, maybe 50, 60 minutes left after completing the exam. And I went back. There were 15 questions that I had marked that I was not 100% sure about. I went back and I found, I think, 14 of those or 13 of those. And I swear there were 1 or 2 questions that I spent probably a half hour on. Literally like half of the time that I had remaining, I spent on these 2 questions, and I could not find them anywhere. I literally found all the other 13, 14 questions, and 1 or 2 I could not find. Now, maybe that's because I just suck at whatever that topic is. I don't know. But I feel like that those 1 or 2 questions were designed to eat up my time. So I'm telling you now, if you run into a question that's taking you more than 2 minutes to answer, guess, take your best shot, guess, mark it so you could come back when you're done, and move on. The importance of this is you're going to get a lot of other questions correct. And you might not even need to get that particular question correct in order to pass. And remember, your goal is to pass. Your goal is not to get every question right. Your goal is to pass. you might not need that point. You might know a bunch of other stuff that if you give yourself enough time to actually locate the answers to these other questions, you'll pass. Forget that question. So if you can't find a question in 2 minutes, guess, mark it, skip it. And trust me, if you do this method, if you're giving yourself 1 to 2 minutes each question, then you're going to give yourself a lot more time and freedom to find the answers to questions that are easier for you to locate and to answer. And if you're giving yourself 1 or 2 minutes a question, you're going to give yourself plenty of time at the end to go back and try and find some of these other ones that you couldn't find in the beginning. So don't linger too long on a question, number 2. So number 3, don't rush to answer a question. Do not rush to answer a question. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive. You're like, dude, you just told me to take 1 or 2 minutes a question, and now I'm not supposed to rush. What are you supposed to do with 1 to 2 minutes if you're not going to rush? Now, that's what I mean. I learned this early on when it came to looking up questions in the code book. This is it right here. Read each question twice. Sorry. Read each question twice. I'm serious. I am dead serious about this. You're going to think you're better off reading through the question really quick so you could hop on that trail trying to find the answer. But I'm telling you, that is not a good and sufficient method for making sure, 1, you're looking for the right answer to the right question, and 2, you know exactly what they're asking you. One of the guys reached out to me on Instagram that was in my little tiny Instagram group that I opened up. You guys are welcome to join that too. It's not too popping. I just have a little Instagram group, so guys that are taking their exam, you have a little more access to me, and you could send your questions, and me or one of the other guys could chime in. And it's a very small group, but you guys are welcome to join if you want. But one of the guys sent me a question on motors. And he was like, man, what am I doing wrong? Like, look, the calculations are right. Everything's right. And everything was correct. His calculations, everything was correct, but for the wrong motor. In the question, it was asking about a single-phase motor, and he was answering it based on a 3-phase motor. So I was looking at it, and I was like, yeah, all of his answers seem right, because I, too, just read it once, and I was like, oh, let's hop into it. Because it was early in the morning, and I looked at this message and I was like, wow, I just see a bunch of numbers right now. I don't know what I don't even know what I'm looking at. So I sat down and I got my code book, and I started going through it and reading it, and I was like, okay, let me just follow his math real quick and see how he's mathing. And I was like, yeah, this is correct, but I was like, let me read the question slowly. And I read the question again slowly, line by line, word by word, just trying to see, is he answering the right question? And he wasn't. He was solving, I believe, for a 3-phase motor, and it was asking about a single-phase motor or vice versa. And so I underlined it, and, then I presented it back to him, and he was able to catch it. And then I told him, like, look, when you're studying or when you're answering a question, read it slowly. Read it twice. Make sure you understand the question so that you can answer the correct question. I remember on these same exact questions when I was studying, I would get so frustrated when it comes to motors. And I realized that a lot of times I wasn't actually reading what kind of motor it was telling me to look up. And I get so frustrated. So I've been there too. So the advice, read the question twice. Don't just hop into trying to find the answer, because you're going to be running for no reason. Trust me, you think it's going to eat up more of your time, but it's actually going to save you time. And you guys can imagine this. You read the question really quick because you're a go-getter. You're ready to go. You read it really quick. You know what to do. You're running around trying to find an answer. You find the answer. It's wrong. And now you have to waste time coming back, rereading the question and figuring it out and going. And you're basically finding the answer twice. You're answering 2 different questions because you didn't want to take the time to read the question twice. So read the question twice. Trust me, it is not going to eat up your time. It is going to save you time. Even though it seems counterintuitive, it is not. It's like making sure your shoes are tied before you start running. You don't want to just throw them on, start running, trip and fall over. Then you wasted time. You got to get back up and then tie your shoes and start running again. So, tie your shoes first. Read the question twice. Okay. That's number 3. Number 4, and this is for California. I've never taken a journeyman exam anywhere else. I'm not too familiar with it. I just know that you need to know the NEC, right? No matter where you're taking an electrical exam, you need to know the NEC. And I know that in some states you have the Master Electrician exam, and I got to look it up and really just kind of understand what is on that exam, because I'm familiar with California. I've taken the journeyman exam, and I've taken the C10 contracting exam. And the journeyman exam here in California is difficult. It is a hard test. You need to study your butt off. You need to figure this stuff out if you're going to take and pass it. The C10 exam is ridiculously easy. You just need to study, because you don't know anything about law and business. And if you fail that, you fail. So you do have to study, but it's easy. It's so easy. It's not even open book. They expect you to just know these things. And I think in other states, if I'm not mistaken, the master exam is kind of a bit of contracting and journeyman, but it's a much harder exam. So in California, when you take a journeyman exam, you're going to get an NEC, and then I think you're going to get like a book on safety and a book on like troubleshooting. I'm not sure. They give you these 2 other thin little books in California, and they're not the NEC. They're not the uglies book. You don't need them for the exam. Like when you take the contracting exam out here, they'll give you a little blueprint flip book where you'll have on a couple pages you'll have prints where you can see like lighting diagrams or lights, outlets, switches and stuff like that, because they're going to want you to count them, and they're going to want you to be able to read prints. And then on another page you're going to have like a service coming in. They're going to want you to be able to name what those service pieces are, and they're going to have like a solar array, and they're going to ask you to just break down what these pieces are, how do you calculate for series and parallel, blah blah blah. And that book is important for the contracting exam. Again, I don't know what's on like the master electrician exam, so if you're listening to this and you're going to take a master's exam, figure out what's on there and what you should use. But in California, they give you these 2 extra books with the NEC. Sorry for that little rant. That was probably, hope I didn't waste anybody's time. But they give you these 2 extra books. My advice is don't use them. Do not use them. I remember the first time I took the exam, I've never seen these books before in my life, so they're definitely not going to help me on the exam. I never studied with them. I picked them up. I started flipping through them, trying to see, like, are there answers in here that's going to benefit me in the exam? Maybe. But if you haven't been studying with them, they're a waste of your time. You don't know how to navigate them. You don't know what's inside of them. They're a waste of your time. So my advice is do not use, if you're in California, do not use those 2 extra books that they give you when you go in to take the exam. You just need the NEC, that scratch paper, pencil, calculator, tabs. That's all you need. So do not waste your time using those other 2 books. And I actually recommend look up what your testing center is going to have. What are they going to give you when you get in there? Because I was surprised by these other 2 books because nobody told me about them. I did not expect to have them. And they ended up kind of tripping me up because I wasted time trying to look through them. So if you're in California and when they give you these 2 extra books, I think one's on safety, one's on troubleshooting or something like that. I don't know. Just throw them to the side. Don't waste your time. Okay. Sorry for that little rant. Number 5. Don't immediately start the test when you sit down. And I think this is everywhere. I think this is across the board. It was the same on my contracting exam as it was on the journeyman exam. So when you sit down, they want to make sure that you know how to use their system to answer questions, mark questions, blah, blah, blah. So when you sit down, the timer does not start. They're going to ask you to log in, and then you do this little prep exam just to show that, like this little exam to show that you know how to use their program, their computer. And then after you do that, you click start. Don't immediately go through that and click start. Why? Because in this time, you're able to get yourself set up to take your exam. And it's not against the rules to do this. You're taking an exam. This is your life. This is your future. Don't feel rushed that you need to sit down and, start plugging away and answering these questions. When you sit down, crack your NEC open, grab your little tabs, whether they're sticky tabs or little paper clips, whatever they give you, and start marking the code sections that you want to find easily. You should already have these down. You should already know I want, these particular tables, this particular section. I want to be able to find these things easily. Put your tabs in there before you even start. This is not against the rules. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong. If you take too long, they will walk up and tell you like, hey, you've been sitting here for 30 minutes. You need to start or something. I don't know how long they give you. But don't feel pressured to immediately start because you're going to start on the wrong foot. Give yourself as much of an ability to pass as you can. So when you sit down, start, putting tabs in your NEC and, use your scratch paper to start writing stuff down. I said this before when I was testing. I wrote down my little PEEPS cheat sheet, which is the my Ohm's Law cheat sheet, just because I didn't want to trip up trying to remember how to do any calculations in the the heat of the moment of trying to answer questions, which happens. You're taking a test, you're under pressure, all these thoughts are going through your head, and you might forget how to do an equation. You might forget a particular number you need to remember. So I wrote those down. I wrote the constant of copper, which is 12.9. I wrote the square root of 3. What is it? 1.732. I wrote voltage drop, the little voltage drop calculation. I wrote my Ohm's Law cheat sheet, and I don't remember if I wrote anything else down, but I had certain things that I was like, okay, these are important for me to remember, and I don't want to have a brain fart. So before I even started the exam, I wrote those things on my scratch paper. I made sure everything was kind of placed where I wanted it to be placed. I wanted to make sure I set myself up for success. So when you go in, don't immediately start, and give yourself that extra ability to do well on your test. Okay, so real quick, the 5 things to not do when you're taking the exam. The first one is don't second guess yourself. Do not change an answer unless you're 100% sure you have found the right answer. Trust me. Number 2, don't linger too long on a question. Some questions are designed to trip you up. If you cannot find the answer within 1 to 2 minutes, guess, mark it, move on. 3, don't rush to answer a question. Read each question twice. Trust me, I don't care how easy it is, read each question twice and read it slowly. Understand the question so you don't waste time finding the answer. 4, don't use the other 2 books they give you if you're in California. And whatever state you're in, look up what books you're going to have, what they're going to give you when you go and test, so you could know ahead of time, okay, they're going to give me something that's a waste of time. Let me throw that to the side. Or if you are going to need it, make sure you understand what's going to be on the exam or what's going to be there in the test center so that you could actually study with it beforehand so you know how to use that book, right? Okay, so number 5, don't immediately start the test when you sit down. You don't have to start immediately. Make that time useful. Make that time worthwhile. Mark up your code book. Write your equations down. Set everything up the way you want it. You're going to be there for 4 hours or so. So, whatever your length of time for your test is, make it a better environment for yourself. So those are the 5 things to not do when you're taking the Journeyman exam. So with that said, I want to say thank you guys to the new subscribers to the podcast, and for the original subscribers that stay sticking around, even though I haven't been too consistent with the podcast. I really appreciate you guys. I do plan on doing some more interviews in the future and hopefully being more consistent with the podcast episodes. I just been stretched thin with my contracting company. I have just a little update on that. I've been working kind of part-time for my actual the company that I work for 40 hours a week, and part-time for myself. And it's been really cool. I was kind of thrust into it because work slowed down and I need money. So I hopped on Google and I hopped on Yelp, and I actually ended up getting 30 days free of Yelp advertisement, which it was like altogether is like maybe $500-$600 to use their thing. Ridiculous number unless you're really making some money. And I got no reviews, any of that stuff. I'm just a nobody popping up, and I ended up actually getting calls. So far over the last week, I've done two or three calls from Yelp, and then one call from another app. It's like home service something. I don't know. It's a little app. So I've done a couple of service calls, and then so that's been really cool. And I've got like 2 5-star reviews, and then I did another one, I think through Craigslist, and I ended up getting a 5-star review on Google because I'm actually asking for these things. I'm like, hey, review me, on Google or Yelp, wherever they're coming from. And it's going really cool. I actually have another guy that wants to work with me, and he suggested using this SEO program, which is really cool. It's only like $230 a month, and they give you like a website with what is it? With like I don't even know what it is. A lot of AI stuff where they're tracking who's calling you, what service you're doing. It's like a really cool built-out website. And then they put you on Google and they do the SEO. And after walking through it with the guy that was trying to sell it to us, it seemed really good. And there wasn't like a bunch of hidden costs or anything. So it seemed pretty good. So I'm going to hop on that and try that. But yeah, I've been really busy trying to figure out how to get my contracting company going. And for the most part, it's been me lacking the confidence, lacking the experience, and just, hindering myself from moving forward because there's so many things I just not experienced with. I wasn't a service electrician, and I'm doing a lot of service work. So going in somebody's home, going in somebody's attic, moving stuff around, knowing, what I should be doing, how I should be conducting myself. So I don't know. It's just a lack of experience on the service side for me that has been holding me back. But the more I go out to these service calls and I kind of get the experience of, get my feet wet talking to people are pretty chill. And I'm learning things that I should bring. Like some people don't want you to wear shoes in their house, and that's very respectful. So wear clean socks. That's a very important one. Wear clean socks. Bring those little booties you could put on over your shoes just to be respectful. Even if you could wear shoes in the house, very respectful. Cleaning up after yourself. I have this thing called Goof Off, which is a spray because, sometimes I touch people's walls and they get dirty. Yeah, I feel stupid, but that happens. And so, you're putting a switch in, your hands are dirty, you're touching a dirty panel in somebody's bedroom. Whatever it may be, and your hands get dirty, you touch the wall, it gets dirty. I have this Goof Off spray, and I got some white rags just in case. Went and bought like a bunch of like 632s and 832s because, those things break a lot. Just random stuff like that. I'm just building out my little service kit. I'm learning that, you could waste 40 minutes going and buying a breaker or a receptacle or something. So just having a couple breakers, couple receptacles in your car, in your van, in your truck, whatever, could save you a tremendous amount of time. So once I do a little bit more, I'll probably make an episode on some of the things that I'm learning, some of the things that I'm doing to get clients, and maybe a little something on how to get side work when you're a journeyman, because I did a lot of side work as a journeyman, and a lot different than going in as a contractor. I felt like I got to be way more presentable now. I'm not just somebody's friend that does electrical. That's an electrician that could come and install something for you. Like I actually have a business and a contracting license, and I got to be a little more presentable. But for you guys that are getting certified, it's always cool making extra cash. It's always cool kind of knowing the legal boundaries to how much money you could make, what you can do, what you can't do. So maybe I'll make an episode on that soon. But with that said, if you guys have any questions, comments, anything, you guys could email me at theyounelectricianpod@gmail.com. You guys could DM me on Instagram. I'm pretty active. I always answer when somebody DMs me on Instagram. So yeah, like this, rate it. That'll really help the podcast out. Send your questions in, things you need help with, anything. Appreciate you guys. I wish you guys the best of success, and let me know when you guys do pass your exams, because that's always exciting to hear. All right, talk with you guys later. Peace.